Thank you, John. I'm not sure that the story starts particularly with my administration myself. It started a long time before that. This has been a goal of many Summit Cityites for decades. But when the election of '79 was over with and I found myself mayor, we realized we needed to begin these things. And John so well pointed out that this area was not at all what we pictured. And I should say, as I look around this room, and Julie mentioned that it's kind of a get-together. Actually, this is like a class reunion for me. I feel like every 10 years I meet you. And by the way, Julie, some of us have been at this a little longer than 26 years. I mean, some of us on city council, and Charles Red was in those things, and Mark Giaquina was here too, running so nicely running our school board now. In the 70s, we're looking at what to do under Ivan Lebemoff. Even had ideas, and he even brought to fame this little architect named Eric Kuhn. Some of you may have met Eric. He was an inspiration in every sense. And after the election of 1980, and by the way, that was not an easy time. If you think back, that was as rough economically as it is today. And we were beginning to lose International Harvester. We were beginning to become the Rust Belt. We had that stagflation, and we had inflation up at 14%. And if you were a builder, such as myself and some of the rest of you, the interest rates were about 20%. So you really couldn't do much in that field. So we were a little challenged as we came in. And we had many things on the plate, and this was one of them. And we kept looking at it, trying to figure out what to do with the thumb, is what this was called at those times. It doesn't have the beautiful name of our pavilions, and it was just we called it the thumb. And people that worked out here were basically angry. They were all angry and mad because the place would flood from time to time, and they kept thinking that we should solve their problems. And the problem was they built before we knew where floodplains were. I mean, the Indians were smart. They had teepees, and when the floods came, they picked up their teepee and went uphill. And not us. No, we built automobile plants and automotive parts and all kinds of things. I mean, we even had and I think Marty would remember this, we even had the EMS on this for a while over on the south part of it. So it was heavily used and well used. And while we're looking at the downtown area, this was part of it, but you may remember the block where the convention center is now. That was a flat piece of broken brick, and it had been the Jefferson Theater and the Wayne Theater, and the previous mayor tried hard to get something going, but we really couldn't, and we needed badly to have a convention center. Everything had to be held out of a place called the Lantern. Hopefully you've forgotten where the Lantern was, but everything, weddings, gatherings, and so we had great difficulty attracting groups to town. So we put our efforts into trying to build a convention center, and if you have a convention center, then you have to build some place for them to stay, and that's a hotel too. And in the middle of a recession in a smaller city, trying to build a hotel is terrible. Fortunately, and we're going to talk about Ian Rowland. Ian Rowland's going to talk more as we go through this. Lincoln Life and Ian Rowland stepped in there too. And as we began to meld these things, we got some urban development action grants and things together, and it wasn't easy. As the interest rates kept going up, poor Lincoln Life was squeezed also. But it took a number of years until we got that done. And you may remember the block along Calhoun Street where the Botanical Gardens are now. There were a bunch of taverns there. And there weren't tattoo parlors, but there were some unsightly places and unsavory places too that we had to remove. And we did that, and the convention center with Helene Follinger, or the Botanical Garden with Helene Follinger, began to take place. And of course, right beside it is this wonderful Embassy Theater, and it was getting ready to be demolished. I think under Ivan Lebemoff, they got within a couple days. And so our focus was on that part of the downtown, trying to make it run. And Calhoun Street, if you remember trying to walk down, it was in terrible shape. It was literally falling down. There were holes in it, and we had to redo it, and there was no place to park. And I could go through this long litany, but I mention that only because it delayed the amount of time we could put into this. We badly wanted to do that as an administration. And I talked with Eric Kuhn, I talked with others, and said, we've got to find a way to deal with both the flooding and the possible beauty of this. We all knew what other cities were able to do, and we weren't doing it. We hadn't found you folks yet. I mean, you had not been, you were there, you were thinking of what to do, and you were willing to participate, but we were just beginning to pull it together. And as we went into this, it was very complex. This is a large dollar amount for the the city of Fort Wayne, and it took a lot of legislative action, it took a lot of local action, they took a lot of private activity too.